What the fuck did I just woke up to? Like seriously, I just woke up and I just got the news that Vanguard isn't Vanguard anymore. And honestly, that excites me.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome to a very special Cardfight update, because today we finally got the information of what Overdress is, and holy crap, it was a bombshell. You've probably already seen the videos of other content creators like Solemn Vanguard, World Class Cardfighters. You've probably seen a live stream of different fights, so you are aware, most likely, of what is going to happen to Vanguard. And a lot is going to happen to Vanguard. And in this video, I basically want to go over the changes and explain my opinion on what I think about them and clarify potential confusion that you might have, because there's a lot of information suddenly being thrown at us. So we have a lot of questions. You have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. So let's take a breather. Let's analyze this and see what this means for the game that we all love to play. Okay, so first off, the game and the lore changes completely. What we know is that Vanguard Overdress is a continuation from the original series, so not V-Series. It happens 3,000 years after the war or fight against Gizeh, which means Planet Cray changed completely to what we are familiar to, which means the nations that we are familiar with changed. They are in different shapes, but also they have taken up different names, and certain clans might have shifted to different nations. Now, what this brings with it is that we suddenly are going to get lore back into the game. Now, this might be a small upgrade for some people that like lore, and for people that don't like lore, they don't care for it, this doesn't really change anything. But what this does change is that our perception of what clans are and what they are divided to is completely different, because this is now what the new nation system is going to look like. So what we see is that basically every clan that was part of one nation now is going to be formed into a new nation, unless you're Dragon Empire, because some things never change. But what we see is that United Sanctuary is turned into Cater Sanctuary, Dragon Empire is still Dragon Empire, Stargate is turned into Brandgate, Dark Zone is turned into Dark States, and this is an interesting one because Dark States is literally created by Gear Chronicle, so it's set in the trailer Gear Chronicle land, which honestly sounds amazing to me. And then, interesting enough, Zoo and Magalania is joined into one called Stroatia, or however you want to pronounce that. And then Bermuda Triangle is still unconfirmed what happening to that, but they're probably going to be their own nation. Now, you might ask yourself, what does this mean? Why is having new nations for the lore all that significant for the game? Well, the reason why that's significant is because Vanguard no longer is going to be a clan-based game. The game is going to be played with nation decks. So that means we have 5 different nations, or at least currently we have 5 different nations with Bermuda Triangle excluded, and we are going to build decks from those nations. So you either play a Dragon Empire deck, a Cater Sanctuary, a Dark States deck, or a Stroatia, or Stroakia, or a Brandgate deck. And what they also confirmed is that all these new cards are going to look like this. Yeah, that's quite different than we used to, because not only do we see the nation symbol and the nation name on the card instead of the clan icon and the clan logo, those are gone. But we also see that the V icon is replaced by the D icon, which immediately tells us that we're going to get a new standard format, because this icon usually represents what cards are legal to play. But before we get into that, take a look at the top left corner. Below the grade and the twin drive symbol, we see a brand new symbol where usually the gift marker symbol is placed. Now, so far, we have no clue what that symbol means, so I'm very curious of what that's gonna represent, and it's probably gonna entice into this new mechanic that is going to be the overdress mechanics. I'm very curious of what this is going to be. Now, back to the fact that we're gonna have a nation-based game. The reason why they changed this is very simple. It's because supporting 24 clans is quite difficult. They also explained that when you're playing a different clan, you sometimes have to wait a long time before you get new support. Now, with the fact that we're gonna have 5 great nations, it's much faster that we're going to see new support, but more importantly, they told us that we're going to get support for every single nation in every single booster set, which means every single set will always have something for every single player. Now, this is very exciting because that means that every single set is going to be excited for everyone. This is something that was the fact for every other major card game itself. So for Yu-Gi-Oh!, every single set might have something for every player. Pokemon, same story. Magic, I think, same story. I'm not so sure if every color is in every Magic set, but it's way more in line what now Vanguard also is going to provide, which is great because I know, as a Gear Chronicle player, needing to wait freaking 14 months for support is the most annoying thing ever. So the fact that we now have always something to look forward to in every single set is way better than what we had in the past. And also balancing the card game is much easier with 5 or maybe 6 different decks or clans, or this day and age nations. It's much easier than having 24 different clans that all do different things. That's way harder to balance around. So this is going to be probably way better for the game in the long run. I'm very aware that there are players that don't like the idea of losing the actual clans themselves and then going for a nation system. I am well aware for that fact, but for the longevity of the game and for the health, I think this is the smarter move because there's way more upsides to downsides to this change. But we get into more detail about how this is going to impact the current format in a bit here, because the next segment that we got to this is a new update to the rarity of the game itself. And this is really, really good because as you're going to see here, VRs are gone. And you probably have seen videos from, I believe, Different Fight, and I think Solemn also talked about this a bit, is that VRs aren't really that great in terms of how sets are developed and also in rarity slots and that kind of stuff. And I agree with this sentiment. So the fact that VRs are gone, great. Really, really great. But not only that, this is really nice, rares and commons will have a chance to get foil versions of that card. Which is really, really good because that means extra special rarities for free in every single set, which means blinging out your deck is much, much easier. And this also can possibly do on a low budget because getting an SP bling version of a common will probably be relatively cheap because who gives a crap in most cases. So now even low budget players can say, I want to bling up my deck a little bit, and it also means there's a nice little goodie in probably a lot more packs, which is really nice. Now also they talked about something called a DSR, called Dress Secret Rare. This is just your typical high rarity stuff that we've seen time and time again, like Lummy Reverend Lair or SVRs or that kind of stuff. So yeah, great. We need high rarity stuff just for blings things and lowering the overall price. So I'm totally fine with this. So what we've seen so far is that Vanguard is going to go from a clan-based game to a nation-based game. So we're going to have way more controlled amount of support, and the amount of diversity is going to lower a bit. But that said, probably within the nations themselves, we will still see the reminiscence of the different clans because those clans still resides in those nations. So it's very likely that in the dark states, we're going to get a support wave that looks more like Spike Brothers and a support wave that will probably look more like Dark Regulars and more like Gear Chronicle because those clans still exist within the nation. It doesn't suddenly disappear. That's not how things work here. But with that said, we get into a kind of controversial point here because the next news they gave us is the new format tournament system. And this is basically what they showed us. We have Standard, we have V Premium, and we have Premium. This is probably the worst outcome, but at the same time the best outcome for the game. And the reason why I say that is that I wasn't really a fan of getting another reboot of the game, because this is essentially another reboot, as we're going to start with brand new cards again. Now, this won't be as problematic as in the past with the previous reboot, but we will see that in a moment here. Now, what I have an issue with here is that we have free formats, and I am not so sure how they're going to support these free formats, and I'm not mean with product support, because we already see how they're going to do that, and we'll probably be fine, but I'm more on the hinge of tournament support, how they're going to do this in BCSs. Now, in terms of the BCSs themselves, they have the room, because keep in mind, Buddy Fight is cancelled, which means this third format can basically take the place of Buddy Fight in the previous BCS, how that was organized. That makes sense. But the issue that I have here is that we have a 2 days events. That means on one day we need to have 2 of the free formats. Which 2 formats are going to be in the same day? Not so sure, and it's going to be quite annoying. Now, another thing that might strike you as odd and potentially problematic is the way what V Premium is. Because Standard is going to be all the new cards with the D icon. Basically, what Standard was right now with the V series is going to be the same for the Overdress series or D series, which makes sense. And Premium is going to stay Premium, which means all cards, which again makes sense. But then we get to V Premium, which basically states that only V cards may be used. Cards with the V icon. Now, this sounds problematic on first glance, because that means this format won't grow. Because you have the V-Series cards, and that's it. Overdress cards cannot be incorporated with it. Premium cards cannot be incorporated. So what's going to happen with the format itself? Now, on first glance, I thought that this is going to be the same way that we've seen with the G era format at the beginning of the reboot, that at some point it's going to be cancelled. But this is not going to be the case, because they already confirmed specific booster support for V series, which means we're going to get support for the normal standard format, for the overdress format. We're going to get specific support for the V format, for V Premium, and then of course regular Premium will benefit from any other support wave, because it can use every single card, which means they are definitely working, and so that means they definitely are planning to support all 3 formats, which is great, in the fact that they already announced what they're planning with these 3 formats. So already we can see that they are learning from the mistakes from the previous reboot, where they just announced stuff and then leave it as silence, because we didn't know what Premium was going to be and if they're going to support it. We now know that V Premium will actually physically be supported with new sets, which is the good sign. So 3 formats in a new game. It's a heavy pill to swallow, same as with the reboot, but it's going to be a good thing. In the long run, this is going to be a good thing. Now, with these potential negative updates, because depending on what stance you are, you're either super excited about what I just told with the nation system, the new Rarity stuff, and the split in formats and the potential new reboot, but you could also be not excited about this. Now, the next couple of things that I'm going to tell you about is super exciting for no matter type of player you are. Because first off, they introduced a new system called Right Deck. This is amazing, because this means that G assisting or great stock is no longer a thing. It's a thing of the past for the new era. Because how this works is that you take 4 cards from your deck, which basically means that at the start of your game, you just select 4 cards from your deck and set it aside, which is interesting. They probably will explain this more in detail later down the line, but how this right now interpreted is that you take 4 cards from your starter deck, put it aside, and then you can discard a card from your hand to select 1 card from that right deck and write it for the next grade from your right deck itself. Which basically means you no longer have great stock issues, but it also means that you have consistent right targets in specific cards, which means the consistency of Vanguard will go up through the roof, which is actually a great thing, because that means that the competitive level of Vanguard will increase, because RNG will be less of a factor and we have more control over the outcome of certain things about the game, which in the past was all about chance. Now, the reason why I say that this is only a thing for the new era is because this right deck mechanic will only apply for the standard format. It will not be applied for V Premium, and it will not be applied for Premium. Now, you might think, well, and you might think that this is kind of annoying, and you're sad about the fact that that's a thing, but I think it's for the better, because if in Premium you could 100% guarantee your right, I think the format is in a bit of a problem, because certain clans have way too strong grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 ride targets, and if you 100% can secure those ride targets, yeah, I don't think that would be too great for the format, which also incidentally means that it's very likely that with the new cards in the Overdress era, we'll have weaker Vanguard specific skills on the grade 1s and grade 2s because of this system, and searchers will probably be less prevalent because we already have this high consistency value to the core mechanic of the game. So there's a high likely chance that skills will be a lot different than we're used to in the past, thanks to the fact that we now have this right deck mechanic. Now, another thing that is amazing is the fact that Bushiroad already announced a lot of new products in the beginning of the reboot, which fixes a lot of issues from what happened in the last reboot. Because they already announced a trial deck for every one of the 5 great nations. And more importantly, these trial decks cost around $4. Which means you can play every single trial deck, so every single empire or every single nation, for only $20, which is the price of a normal trial deck. So for the price of a normal trial deck, you have 5 decks, which is insane. This is really good value, and this can help Standard to have a good kickstart into the new era. Because if they had the prices jacked up to the normal, it will be a lot harder to try out these new decks and to incorporate new players into the game, which is usually the core selling point of such a reboot as this. Now, also on top of that, they also introduced the first booster set, which we see here, and this also confirmed that every single nation will get support in the very first set. So that is really, 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 really good. Now, there is only one more extra detail that we have for the new game itself, and this is a very odd one and very interesting at the same time, is the new trigger that we are going to get in the Overdress era, which is called the Over Trigger. Now, as you see here, and yes, this image is correct, this trigger has about 10 million power, or I should say 100 million power. But at the same time, it also has a very unique effect, which it can resist damage source, and it will also have a different effect for every nation. So I'm very curious of what this particular thing is going to be, because there's still a lot of unknown about this trigger and how it's going to work, and if I'm correct, we're going to get more information later today. So I'm not going to go in more detail about this trigger because we don't know a lot about it and how it's going to incorporate. Yes, this is insane the amount of power, but it's a one-off. You can only run one trigger of this kind in your deck. Now, this increases the RNG nature of the game because it's a one-off. So if this thing rips off and your opponent isn't guarding, yes, that's 100 million power against your face, which you're probably going to take. But at the same time, it's not a critical trigger. So it doesn't increase the amount of damage. It just secures that the damage goes through. So in most cases, this probably won't change a lot. It just secures that a certain attack will always hit unless you just perfect guard it. Now, depending on these effects, what it's going to do, this can change a lot. The resist damage source could be interesting because if this is the same as in Wise Swartz, where it just negates all the damage of that attack, this could be really good for a defensive option because it could negate an offensive play entirely, and it could help you survive the game longer. Now, depending on your stance, this could be really annoying, but I personally am very excited for such a prospect because it means that you have more ways to survive and stall the game into a longer game state, which means random OTKs out of nowhere, which was the norm for V series at this point, is going to be less prevalent because of this RNG nature that we're going to get with these triggers. But this is all just pure speculation because we don't know so far what this is going to be, and we're going to have more information about this trigger later down the line. So to basically summarize what we know so far, and then go into detail about what my opinion about it is that clans are going to be abolished. The new standard format is going to be a nation-based game. They also confirmed that we're going to have 3 formats, and all 3 formats are going to get support. And interesting enough, in the standard support, because there's going to be another clan selection in the future, they already confirmed something like that, we're going to get Raging Form Dragon and Tetra Drive Dragon, which means we're going to get more older clans or older cards for the V-Series themselves. So more nostalgia catering, which is fine. Like, that's what the V-Series is, so it makes sense that they're going to do that in the future as well. So we're going to get 3 formats, which are all going to be supported, which is a good thing. And we're going to get immediately support for every single nation or every single clan deck out of the gate on the very first month of this potential reboot. So, with that said, although I wasn't a fan of the idea of another reboot, I am very happy with this news. And the reason why is because Bushiroad actually learned from their mistakes from the previous reboot. And those mistakes, and I already addressed it in previous videos, is their silence about the split of formats and their lack of support and the pace of support in the beginning of the reboot, because the game was super still. The fact that they already confirmed that we're going to get support for these different archetypes or these different formats, and they already confirmed how it works, and we already aware that how premium works and it's going to survive no matter what, can reassures us that we can invest in these different formats because all 3 are going to get support. This is way better than just the silence in the previous past. But on top of that, the fact that we get 5 trial decks for the price of 1 and then immediately a wave support for every single clan, right at the get-go means that every single clan or nation is immediately playable, and we're going to have a more flexed out format right out of the gate. But one thing that I'm more excited about is the fact that now that the fact that we have 5 nations means that every single set, every single support wave will be exciting for the entire community. Now, granted, I am saddened by the fact that Gear Chronicle doesn't really exist as a clan. Sure, I am saddened about that fact, because we all are attached about their clans and we all want to play it. But at the same time, if we really want to keep in that same theme, we can always play premium or stay with the V-Series standard, because they're gonna support the format anyway. So you can stay with that if you really like your clan and you don't want to strive away from it. But at the same time, like, why wouldn't I be happy about Overdress? Like, Gear Chronicle literally have their own freaking nation. They build a freaking empire. Like, this is even better. Yes, sure, the first wave supported trial deck has something like Spike Brothers if I look at the artwork. But heck, we'll probably get some, like, Monarchy Gear Chronicle cards. Like, how can I not be excited about that? But with all jokes aside, like, this video is going on long enough. Like, this video is basically me blabbering about the new information, because there's so much to digest and there's so much to talk about, and I have no clue how to digest this even better and to summarize everything in the correct setup. And there's going to be more support and more news on the horizon, because they are also confirmed that from this point onward, every single weekly live stream, so on Tuesday, which means in a couple of hours, we're going to get more information about Overdress. And today, we're going to get more information about releases of sets. We're going to get information about the new mechanic, about this trigger, I believe, and also about new units. So this is the reason why I just want to talk about the new information in this video, more like a casual kind of talk, because later today I will upload another video with the extra information about the live stream that we're going to have with Dr. O, and it will probably be like a normal Cardfight update, because then we have more information to talk about. But so far, I can understand if people are concerned about Vanguard and they have mixed feelings, because this whole news is a mixed bag. Like, we were attached to clans, we were attached about the game, how it was played for the last 10 years, or how long we played the game. Personally, I played the game for about 6 years, and I can understand if you're attached to your clan and you don't want to depart with them because of this new system. I can understand, but for what they've shown us and how they're incorporating these new rules, I am confident that this will be positive and will be a good thing for Vanguard in the long run. Because the fact that they decided to merge nations together and then also confirm that they're going to support this in the correct way, and they are addressing things in the correct way that they did in the past, leaves me hopeful for what this could mean in 2021 for Vanguard. And they also announced that they have new staff on board. They have a new development team that are testing this stuff, and we're seeing more and more positive indications that they are going into the right direction. And I think this is the right push to actually said, alright, Vanguard, the last 10 years was old Vanguard, we made some mistakes, we are aware of that, now we're gonna get in this new era, and we're gonna fix those issues, and we're gonna make things right. And also, one thing we can be well aware of is that now we know for certain that Solemn Vanguard was right, that rotations are going to be the new norm for Vanguard, so expect that in probably 3 to 4 or 5 years, it's very likely that we have another rotation like this. Now the question is it going to then split up in 4 formats, or going to do it a little differently? That's for us to worry about then. Right now, I am very confident that I'm going to try out these new decks and these trial decks, and I'm probably going to be very excited because these artworks are looking goddamn sweet. And I cannot wait till we get a Gear Chronicle unit that looks like this, because, oh boy, I am so excited at what the Kings of Dark States looks like. Well, that basically is everything for me on this video, and not for today, because we're gonna have another video in a couple of hours. So with that said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new information, these new updates. There are probably a lot of questions and a lot of things that you're probably unaware of, or you don't know what is going to happen. So slam them down in the comments below. I'll probably answer them as fast as possible. And of course, we're going to get more information every single week. And I'll probably see you guys in a couple of hours when we get more information and more updates about the current schedule. Because we have a release schedule, but they're probably going to elaborate it more in a couple of hours. So I'm going to wait for that. So I'm going to wait for discussing that once we get more detail about that. So with that said, let me know all your thoughts about Vanguard Overdress in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap. I'll see you guys in the next one.